Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, here with Adam Gray, the Basketball Card Podcast. We are going to talk about Instagram, probably some other social media stuff. I'm not on Instagram. It's a big deal to Adam, and I'm going to let Adam try to persuade me and perhaps some of you to the benefits of Instagram and other of the like, although Instagram is pretty unique. First, thanks sponsors, Topps Panini Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. I bet not all my sponsors are on Instagram. So, Adam, welcome to the show. We discussed your origin story and some other stuff before, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts about Instagram and convince me, my sponsors, and others why Instagram is the place to be.
Jim, I think you got 4 or 5 main reasons why you have to be on Instagram, and we could talk for each one of those for a whole episode. But I think the thing that I think about when I think about you is you have, I'm not telling anybody a secret here, you have such a tremendous influence over people and how they feel about different parts of our hobby. Your name is respected and we all know who you are. And the opportunity that I have right now as I sit and I talk to you is pretty unique. But many people could be given that opportunity in a really easy to navigate way if you had an Instagram account and you were reaching out to people and giving them the opportunity to reach out to you. So the number one reason that I would say that you should join Instagram along with all card collectors is to connect with other people who are like you.
Okay, let me just, can I address them one at a time, or are you going to pile up 5 on me before?
Oh, that's why I paused. Go for it.
Okay, the first one is one of my concerns, and it probably is the concern of some others who are not as much engaged in social media, because the key word is engagement. And for me to get into social media and engage, if it's a whole bunch of one-on-one engagements, that's going to be a lot of time. And I think a lot of people can get swallowed up in social media. Instagram, very entertaining. I have lots of friends that love it, but it becomes a part-time job. So how do I manage it, or how do other listeners manage it so it's 30 minutes a day or something that's not 8 hours a day responding to requests or comments or questions?
The great thing is that you don't have to respond to everything. And I think that you're in a unique position where I think people would respect that. And those people who didn't respect that probably aren't worth your time anyways. And I don't think anybody, like, take really famous people who have millions and millions of followers. They certainly they don't have to return every message and whatever. And you can get a message that goes into a filter where you decide that you want to look at it and you want the person who sent it to know that you looked at it. And so you can click on it and put it, in a folder where they'll be able to know that. If you don't do that, then they'll have no reason to believe that you've even ever seen their message. So I think I hear what you're saying, and I think that's a good point. I think your point about some people becoming, too into it and letting it really take over is a really good point. I'm probably somebody who's let it take over too much, but I don't think you have to let it do that.
Okay. Well, one further thing before we go to number 2, you have dug into some of the old Beckett Basketball Monthly magazines. We had extensive readers write. At one point, we were getting 1 million pieces of mail a year, and most of them had comments and questions and things like that. So we only could print a sample, a representative sample of the questions and comments that we got, and responded to those. And that was a lot of work, but people knew that. Are you saying I could do something like that, where if I got a large volume, I'm not saying I get 1 million anymore, but if you get 100, that's 100 responses. If they're one-offs, that takes some time, because the questions we got, if you remember, because I know you've done this because I've listened to your podcast, the readers' rights from back in the day in the basketball as well as all the sports were not simple questions. They weren't yes or no's. They required some thought. Yeah. So are you saying I could just be selective like that?
Yeah, your thought on this is something that I hadn't considered, but I think that's exactly what you should do. I think if you were to take one question or one idea a day, like you're doing for your podcast, maybe less than that if you wanted to, but just take your messages that come in and say, here's something that I want to address today, and make an image of it.
So Instagram, you got to have an image. And then there's got to be so is it a video? Is it a short video that responds to an articulated question that's the question of the day? And is it Hootsuite? There's the ones where you can put it out there and then it'll flow to your various social media. Or is it Instagram only?
It's so easy to have it linked to other social media avenues, but I just think it would be a really easy way for you to connect with more people who are fans of the magazine, more people who are currently in the hobby. But I think that you would be able to limit it to as much or as little as you wanted to. So that's my number 1.
Okay, number 1. Okay.
The number 2 thing that I would say, and this is particularly for you, is I'm going to be really honest with you for a sec. I didn't know about your podcast until you were over 100 episodes in. And if I would have known, I would have listened to all of them, and I would have listened every day. The way that card collectors, the way that a lot, let me start that sentence over again, because I don't want to come across as a know-it-all here. The way that a lot of card collectors consume information at this point and connect with people is exclusively Instagram. And there's a lot of people who are like that. I used to be somebody
more so than the Twitter, and more so than Facebook.
In my experience, far more than Twitter. But Facebook, you're right that Facebook has a huge following too.
And skews older.
That's probably true. But I'm telling you, I've got friends a lot of friends that are in their 70s and that are in their 60s on Instagram. I don't think that's abnormal at all, but it just provides such a wonderful way for you to be able to show your collection, and it's just digestible. It's easy. And again, for you and your purposes, I think you could promote your podcast in a way where you would have a significant number of people who would come to it who didn't even know that it existed before. And having said that, over the last little while, you've had a lot of people on who are big kind of influencers in the card community on Instagram, and so a lot of people probably know about it at this point. But I think if people were able to engage with you about your podcast there, and Instagram would be the perfect place for it, it would be good for your podcast.
I thought Instagram frowned on self-promotion.
That might be true. Every one of my podcast episodes, I put up a little slide that says, here's who I talked to and here's what I talked about. And I think I've seen everybody else do that too. So I don't think
the promotion is selling something, not telling people here's something free. Here's a podcast. I think
there are a lot of people who are selling cards specifically.
No, but I'm saying that's if you're overdoing the selling and using it as a selling platform and not being helpful. I'm not selling something. I'm giving away a podcast. Okay, I don't want to run out of time here. Hit me with your number 3. Point 2 taken.
Okay, the number 3 thing really just goes along with that same sort of thing. And I'll tell you a story that will illustrate this. So a little while ago, I had the chance to acquire a really big card. And it's not the sort of card that I would have had enough card funds to go out and to just be able to go spend that amount quickly. So I needed to raise some serious cash. And the way that I did that was to say, okay, I need to sell some cards. A lot of people do. I had to sell some stuff so I could go buy the big card. And so in the course of about 3 or 4 hours one night, I got on my Instagram live, and I showed off about 25, 30 cards. And within three or 4 hours, I sold $17,000 worth of cards over 12 or 15 total cards. I did that without any fees. There's no eBay. And I love some of our friends at eBay and ComC and those places. I had 0 fees. I sold these things at market value, and people were happy to do it because they're avoiding some of the hassle there, and those people know me and they trust me. So it's a way to avoid fees if you're able to have the right group of people around you, and it's a way for you to be able to disseminate that information quickly.
Okay. Not as applicable for me, I don't think, at this point and stage, but I think some of my listeners are salivating. Let's go to number 4. Let's make sure we get through these so that we can have a chance to summarize them.
So number 4 would be maybe the biggest one of all, and that is that it gives you a chance to find the things that you're looking for by connecting with like-minded people who have the same item, have the same sort of tastes that you have. So you're connecting, with, like I said, in number 1, you're connecting with people, and that connecting with people then enables you to find things that you might not be able to find otherwise. What people don't realize is that some of the biggest deals that are happening today, you talked a little bit about this on a previous podcast where you talked about market cap and the number of sales that you believe are happening in a year. I believe that the vast majority of high-end deals, not only do I believe, I know that the vast majority of high-end deals are happening through personal connection, and that personal connection is happening in social media, and I think it's happening on Instagram more than anywhere else. So for you to find things is my number 4 point.
And I don't. That's not as compelling as the other ones because I have too many cards. That's it. I've got my top 1,000, and I'm trying to winnow. But I take your point. If something came up that would be really interesting, not sure what it would be, and I see what you're saying. Okay, let's go to number 5.
I think those are as I wrote down my points of what I think those are the main ones. Number 1, connecting, and number 2, really promoting your podcast. For me, those are the 2 that really should sell you. I knew that number 3 and number 4 might not be as good a fit, but.
You said you were a CFO or you some kind of a controller?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a controller. I'm not going to say he was a great guy, actually, but controllers need to know how to say no. But those first 2, in the accounting sense, there's just the cost benefit. It would take me some time. I know I would get a benefit. I do not deny that at all. But and you're convinced that the benefit would far outweigh the cost and you're saying exponential?
Maybe not exponential, but I think maybe not exponential because you've had the connections on Instagram that you've had thus far that I think have gone a long way to probably promoting your podcast at this point. But if I would guess that the connection that you have with people is important to you, and I would guess that you probably enjoy still learning about new things that are happening in the community. I think that's the best way to do it, is to go the Instagram route.
And you don't think that a lot of the social media traffic and action is centered on 2020 products?
I think it depends on what circles you find yourself in. But the great thing about social media is you get to decide what circles you put yourself in. So for me, I know there's a lot of 2020 stuff out there. I don't collect as much stuff from 2020 as most people do. Most of my collection is from before that. So I wish I could put in front of you the number of connections and people that I feel like are real friends that have come from that work.
I can see that you're a success story. You're practicing what you're preaching. I appreciate that. But I just feel like Facebook has Facebook groups. What's the equivalent in Instagram?
So there are actually like Instagram groups where you can, an Instagram sort of chat function where you can have certain people on it. So let me give you an example. Let me give you a really good example. There's a Michael Jordan collector group that has just 20 people on it. And I'm really lucky to be one of the 20 people who's on it, because the 20 people in this group are people who I trust, people who are really smart, and people who know the high-end Michael Jordan market really well. This kind of organically was created it was started by one of your previous guests, Chris, and then it's organically grown and changed over time. But whenever there's something that's significant that's happening in the hobby and I haven't heard about it, typically the first place I'll hear about it will be somebody on that group will just mention it. And because there's that connection between us, we have lots of conversations and lots of things that we find out about there where we become educated. And without that group, it wouldn't happen.
Adam, if I were to turn the clock back, I got to turn it back more than 15 years, where I'm in the chair, where I'm either the CEO or president, or again, the boss, the owner, whatever of Beckett Publications. If the social media tools had been available before I sold the company, I would have had to be knee deep into all that, either me or my excellent team, because that's a lot of where things are happening. I admit that. I don't want to have a company. I just want to be me, myself, and I, and enjoy being a hobbyist. But I can see that when I jumped into the podcasting pool, there are a lot of people that want to know more. And I was thinking that a daily podcast would be sufficient. And it probably is for some people. Are you saying that some additional output would still be really good and non-duplicative? Is that what you're saying? A little more frequency, another touch point each day?
You've hit on something that I think is really important, and that is that you want to give to it what you want to give to it. And I would never tell somebody that they're giving the wrong amount. If you're already giving us a tremendous gift by providing us with 15 minutes a day that we can go listen to and come away smarter and more educated. But if you wanted to connect with more people, or if you wanted to have another way to communicate, I guess really the podcast doesn't allow you to have the individual conversations with people. But if you wanted those, that's how you would get it.
We're out of time, Adam. I knew this would happen because you have too many stimulating thoughts and questions and suggestions. So we'll continue our dialogue on this. I'd love to be a guest on your excellent show. But for now, listeners, you'll have to wait and see what happens from this discussion that Adam and I have had about Instagram. And Adam, thanks again for giving of your valuable time. And I look forward to continuing the discussion. But that's it for today. Listeners, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode, and Adam will be back next week with another episode. Or what's your frequency, by the way, on Basketball Card Podcast?
I try to do it once a week, but life gets busy and sometimes it ends up being less than that.
It's a great note to end on. The retired guy is clearly not as busy as the guy that has a family and a job. So thanks, Adam. Thanks, everybody. Be back again tomorrow.